Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth annual Stream Scheme Buy Low, Sell High Christmas Extravaganza. I am your host, David Benton. You might remember me from such shows such as the Stream Scheme and most recently Short Shifts as well. With me today, I have some very, very special guests to accompany me on this journey through the wild world of mid-season fantasy hockey trading. First up, we have this guy who stinks at picking guys that he loves, but is pretty good at hating the right people, apparently. You can't find this man on Twitter because the man has no Twitter. It's Twitterless Mason. Mason, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, and I still love these players, and I'm loving not having them on any of my teams. So that's the positive part of this recap.
And up next, we have Captain, my captain. He had the worst hate pick of all time in his preseason love-hate list. You listeners at home, can you even guess or maybe even remember who it was? You'll find out soon, but he's actually tremendous, apparently, at picking players that he loves. He's a lover, not a fighter. That's all. It's PJ Richards. PJ, how's it going?
Dave is going pretty good, and it'll be fun to get into that little misstep I definitely had. But like you said, I think I'm doing pretty good, sitting in first, second, third in most of my leagues this year. So doing okay. So those guys that I loved, I picked them up, and it's been helping me.
That's what I'm talking about. And this last guy is Elon. Hey, Elon.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I think that some people may not have listened to that preseason show because that was just on the Stream Scheme feed before we got rid of that and brought you onto the main feed. I think I may be wrong about that. But anyways, yeah, you guys did a really fun show with your pre-draft love and hate. And now I get to hear the reminders of who you guys chose and give my thoughts. And if I think you were, I mean, this is like the easiest job in the world, right? Like, wow, you were so dumb to hate that guy. And I can just pretend like I knew all along. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So before we get into the juice of this episode, where we get ahead of the question that it seems everyone asks this time of year, people are coming up to me on the streets, the mean streets of Pittsburgh, PA, mind you. People shouldn't be coming up to me, but they come up to me and they say, Dave, can you give me a list of players that I should target? And also, if you don't mind, a list of players I should try to get rid of, AKA which players should I buy low and sell high on. So before we get into that, we got to see how our preseason love-hate picks, because you guys know we are all about accountability here on the Stream Scheme. All right. And so basically we're just going to roll through the list for each person, what they had on their love list and hate list. And then we'll kick it over to Elon, since he wasn't a part of that love hate extravaganza at the beginning of the season. So he'll let him know if he'll have to go back in time and kind of see if he would have agreed with these picks or not. And hopefully he'll be a little honest with us. So we'll start off with, let's start off with PJ, since we gave that little tease earlier. So we don't want to keep the crowd waiting too long. PJ, as we mentioned, for his love list, we'll start out positive, was very good. PJ loved Jack Eichel, who is now 29th in overall kick-up points. So that's a win here for him. Noah Dobson, 82nd. I called that a push. Maybe we can have Elon give us his official opinion here. Dobson's 82nd overall, which is kind of like right around, I think, where he was going in drafts. He had Jenner, which I counted as a win here. And lastly, PJ had Kreider for his honorable mention, which I counted clearly as a win. So I called that going 3.5 out of 4. Elon, how do you feel about PJ's love list here of Eichel, Dobson, Jenner, and Kreider?
They're all good picks. They're all players that I would have been similarly into. I don't know if any of them were like home runs, like, saying you love someone that then ended up like really like overperforming where they were drafted. Like Chris Kreider actually right now is a little cold, but I would consider, like, I was making these lists then for our like current advice of buy low and sell high. And it's like, I wonder if you could like buy low on Chris Kreider because he has like 1 point in his last 4 games. Probably not, unless you have like the most impatient people in the world in your league. But I think, yeah, I love PJ and I think he's great. None of these picks, in hindsight are blowing me away, but I think Noah Dobson, I will say, is Like he has more to give. I have a hunch that Noah Dobson is going to turn into like an exciting pick later. I'm actually surprised he only has 20 points in 30 games. I feel like anytime I see a goal from the Islanders, it always seems like Dobson is popping up, but I guess maybe this is just a selective memory.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised as well, actually, because whenever I originally looked at it and saw Dobson, I'm like, oh, that's a win. But then, like, I went back and looked at him. I was like, eh. So, Peach, how are you feeling about your love list so far here?
Yeah, and just to recap, because in case anyone didn't catch this show, what we were doing is basically looking at where the pre-rankings from the Cacopful patrons were and seeing who we liked at where they were being drafted to maybe outperform their draft position. Not just like, I love McDavid. I want McDavid. It was more like, oh, Eichel's going later than I think he will finish, and I'm picking him. And so, I'm happy with them. I'm with you. I still, I had a hard time getting Dobson in a few leagues because he ended up going a bit higher than even what I, thought was. But I'm still happy with him. I've got him in one league and I want to see what he does. He's got a bit more to put. And I kind of tried going with one guy that's kind of higher in the ranking, one guy that was kind of mid rankings, and one guy that was lower in the rankings. So it wasn't just like all guys that are being drafted super low. And that's kind of why I went with like an Eichel that was up there that we knew wasn't going to jump up like from maybe the third round to like a first round contender, but might jump up to like late second round from like late third round or early fourth round, which is where we were seeing him going. So I think I'm happy with them. Like Elon said, I didn't have any home runs on those picks. They were all just kind of okay.
Moving on to Mason's love list. Oh, go ahead, Mace. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to chime in on those picks, I think they're more of home runs than you guys would call them. Like, yeah, Eichel's 29th, but he's missed some time. And if he hadn't, he'd be higher. Jenner was being drafted at 164th, and he's currently 72nd in Cupful. Like, that's a massive hit there for a guy you were drafting in like the 13th round or something. And then Dobson, like, yeah, he's ranked about where he was drafted, but for a defenseman, like, that's always a little skewed based on total points. So I think if we were redrafting according to current rankings, he'd be a little bit higher. So I think, yeah, those were all hits to me.
Fair enough. Yeah, Jenner.
And that's why we love Twitterless Mason. Just coming to my defense. Thanks, Mason.
All right, moving on to PJ's, or no, that was PJ. Moving on to Mason's love list here. Not as pretty. He had Demko as his top love list player, followed, which was a loss, obviously, followed by, or trend, we should say, as well for all these picks mid-season. And these were season-long picks. So these are all just trending towards a win or a loss. Obviously, a lot can still happen, but Mason had, and you'll get your chance to defend yourself here, Mr. Demko, Heiskanen, Mo Seider. Heiskanen, he's like 99, so I think I called him a loss as well. I think he was getting drafted higher. Seider, clear loss here, and Hartman, still a loss. So I called you 0 for 4 here. Elon, what do you think of Mason's love list of Demko, Heiskanen, Seider, and Hartman?
Well, I mean, he put himself out there by throwing a goalie in there. That's always a risky play. And yeah, you're likely to get burned. This season, like you pretty much mentioned any goalie that people were excited about going into the season. I don't recall many people saying that they were super stoked about a Kochikov or a Linus Ullmark. So I think most of people were wrong. Yeah. And then, I mean, Hartman, I was really high on him as well. What a bummer that turned out to be. Like, he got bumped from the top line. Now we'll see. He's going to come back from injury. Is he going to get back on the top line, do what he was doing before? I mean, probably not. Heiskanen has been solid. I think Heiskanen's been like what we were expecting, or at least I was. Like, he's like on a pace of like a 67-point pace. He's having a great year, but I guess with the peripherals, it doesn't make him like super high ranked in Cupful. Who was the fourth one again?
Hartman and Seider. I don't think.
Seider. Yeah, and then Mo Seider. What a disappointment so far. But I mean, who would have called that? Like, such an amazing rookie season, and now he's been doing absolutely nothing. And Hronik's not even injured long term, so you can't even be like, oh, now he'll get more opportunity. He's just got to step up. Come on, Moritz Seider, like 12 points in 29 games. I can't fault Mason for that one. I guess like a lot of people though were like drafting him as like a really high up defenseman. So I don't know like how high Mason was. I guess you could say Mason. How high were you thinking Seider should be drafted among defensemen?
Basically right where he was. Yeah, his ADP ended up spiking even further as a couple drafts were going. So he ended up basically where I thought he would be. But obviously that hasn't worked out.
Thoughts about the rest of your picks there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're big misses. I'm not going to say that these are good picks. Hartman, I still like for the rest of the year, so we might talk more about that later. Demko obviously got injured, and yeah, that's just tough. Canucks have been way better since he's been out. Like they're like 13-6, I think, their last 19 after starting 0-7. And so if he can get it together, I think the team has gotten it together and he could be okay once he's back. Seider, man, it annoys me so much that Dennis Cholowski held Hronek off the top power play for like 5 years. And we were all so annoyed about it. And then finally Seider comes in, takes top power play, and then they bump him for Hronek, who couldn't get it before. I think I just need to stop picking top power play defensemen, because my big bust the year before was Jacob Chychrun, who lost top power play to Gostisbehere, and these guys pretty much came out of nowhere, as far as I can tell.
Well, if anything, Chychrun is like really crushing it since he's come back from his injury this year. So maybe that means you should pick Seider next year. You're always just a year behind and you'll be totally fine.
So, and then let's move on to the best love list, of course. Yours truly, Davey Betts, without question here, but I'll let Elon review my list. Nonetheless, I had Sidney Crosby, easy win, 12th overall and kick couple points. I think we can all agree there. Brent Burns, I'll call this a little bit of a loss here. He's 108th overall, not too far from Heiskanen, but I think from where I kind of wanted to draft him in like that 5th, 6th round range, I think is a little bit under expectations. I expected a little bit more from him. Rope Hintz, clear win. That top Dallas line is just beautiful. And my 4th one, Georgiev. You said it's hard to pick goalies. Well, I did it. He's 9th in overall couple points for goalies. So that's a clear win as well. Elon, what do you think about Sid the Kid, Burns, Hintz, and gorgeous Georgiev?
Yeah, Brian and I were drooling about Crosby on an episode of the main show a little while back. Like, he's just unbelievable. Like, there's nothing you can say about that. Like, he's 35. He's having like what's looking like a career year, one of his best seasons since back like 10 years ago, or more. So yeah, that was a great pick of yours. He's definitely like performing higher. I'm sure a lot of people just expect he'll slowly get it like a little bit worse, but instead he's just getting better, like a fine wine. Georgiev was a good pick. He's starting to like not be as good lately.
Yeah, lately it's been a little slippy.
So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen for the rest of the year, because Francouz, on the other hand, has really started to look really good. And Georgiev just took this loss to Buffalo in the last game. I wonder if Francouz, he just got 2 starts in a row for the first time this season. So I wonder if this is a sign that, you should have sold high on your Georgiev pick maybe a few weeks ago. But overall, yeah, it's a good list. Dave, I think you called your shots. You did well. Yeah, Brent Burns, everyone was like really excited about, and he's like pretty good, but maybe not like as crazy exciting as people thought he would be.
Yeah, go ahead, Mace.
I'm just a little offended that you called Heiskanen a loss and Brent Burns a borderline loss when Burns was drafted a full round ahead and has been worse.
I should have told you, I changed Heiskanen to a push. So you were actually 0.5 out of 4, not just 0.
I think I deserve a 0.7. That's all I'm saying.
We'll leave
What's going on with Burns, by the way? He like started the year with like games with like 6, 5, 4 shots, like a 7-shot game. Now this past 2-3 weeks, he hasn't had more than 2 shots in a game. Like, does he just like need a rest or something? Maybe he'll come back strong after.
Did he have
Christmas
a baby
break
that we don't know about?
Could be.
I don't know. But enough of this lovey-dovey stuff. Let's get a little slightly negative. And again, we didn't actually hate these players. We just hated where they were being drafted in the preseason, keeping Carlson ADP. That the lovely, I believe it's Kevin Hebert, right? That's not Shams, is it, Elon?
No, it's Kevin that does all those great stats for us with the
one of the best preseason tools that you can really ask for. I know I was looking at it daily. But let's get to it. I'll start with, we can go in reverse order here. We'll start with my hate list. It's still great. It doesn't matter if I'm loving people or if I'm hating people. I hated JT Miller. That was a win here. He's 54th overall and kick couple points. People were drafting him in the 2nd round. DeBrincat was my second pick. That's a loss. He's been great. He's actually been better than I expected because he's been really good lately. So that's a loss here on DeBrincat. But I also picked Letang, clear win on him being bad, I guess you can say. And Zegras, he is also not performing up to expectations. So I think we can confidently call that 3 for 4 here on my hate list. Elon, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Letang could be like a buy low. Like, I don't think like the book is shut on him. But yeah, those were all really smart choices. Zegras, don't forget, I think with someone like him, you can't just go by the raw ranking because you take these Anaheim guys for those off day schedules and all of those extra games played you can get. So I think even though Zegras is only pacing for like 66 points and maybe like 25 goals when maybe you would have been hoping for whatever, I don't know, 75 points and 30 goals. But he's probably still like similarly worthwhile as someone who has those stats that maybe we were expecting from him. And now he's also someone that I guess Anaheim's just been such a disappointment. So that's been holding him back a little bit, except for Troy Terry. He's been amazing.
Thank you, Elon. I would agree. Clear domination by myself. Up next, we've got Mason on his hate list. I told you, he's a much better hater than he is lover. But we've got Quinn Hughes, clear win here on betting on Quinn Hughes to be bad. He had Huberdeau / Lindholm, which I think just from Huberdeau alone, we can call that a win. Patrick Kane, he's 132nd overall and kick up full points. That's a clear win. And his last pick was Blake Wheeler, who I'm calling a loss because right now, Wheeler is 100 overall in a couple points, which I think is going above where even you were saying people like don't draft him and stuff like that. So, Elon, what do you think? And then we'll get Mason's reaction.
No, I mean, I definitely need to ask Mason for advice going to next season. These are all like bang on choices, like Patrick Kane and Brian on the show.
Not for players he likes.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. These are bang on choices for guys who are not going to be as good as people thought they would
Don't
be.
ask him who he likes. Just ask him who he hates.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, should I draft this guy? If he says yes, I don't know if that's good advice or not. But if he says no, I'll know to listen. Quinn Hughes is so funny, by the way. He's like pacing for his best ever season in terms of points, but he has no goals, 0 goals, 25 assists in 25 games, taking fewer shots than last year, even, which was already very few. 1 hit. So far, we'll see. He had 19 hits last year, so he's even going to fall short of that mark if he continues. So, yeah, unless you're in a points-only league, Quinn Hughes, yeah, I agree. Like, it's a huge loss. Too bad. But yeah, great picks by Mason there.
Yeah, I do actually find it much easier to pick out guys that I do not want whatsoever than it is to pick guys I like. And usually my strategy is just to like cross off a ton of names and then take value, basically whoever else falls from the people that I'm okay with, because it's just so hard to predict who's going to like break out or whatever. I think there were clear signs with Huberdeau and Hughes. Hughes, especially, like Elon said, he's been doing so great and he still sucks for a couple, which is just exactly what I was saying. I didn't even expect him to be this good, but yeah, he's been awful. And I do still kind of like Huberdeau the rest of the year. But yeah, he's just had such low ice time. And obviously Calgary is not the offensive dynamo it was.
Yeah, Huberdeau could be good, but not for a first round pick, I don't think. And that's where he was being taken.
Oh, yeah. Or like top of the second, at latest, essentially. But
I think I was saying like fourth, late third at the start of the year. Yeah.
And PJ, he had a rough loss here with his first hate list. Tage Thompson. He's been all right. So it's a loss here for Tage Thompson.
Can I jump in on Tage Thompson? Yeah. I know that's what you were teasing, and it's like, oh my God, how could you say that Tage Thompson wouldn't be good? Like, you're such a moron. How are we even advice on the show?
You said that. I
know. Well, I'm just saying that, like, we need to realize, like, PJ is not alone. Like, I went back. I remember being on Twitter when he signed that contract, and there was a lot of people saying that Buffalo really blew it. Like, that on the Keeping Karlsson Twitter account, I was looking through some of the tweets of people that, Brian picked. Brian only picks like good people to follow. And I'm not going to call specific people out, but here's some quotes here. Like, as we already said, Tage Thompson had great last season, but we still don't think he deserved that contract after only one good season. Here's something, damn, that Tage Thompson contract is just outrageous. A real Pegula special. His on-ice shooting percentage nearly triples. He gets stapled to Skinner and Tuck with a huge offensive zone start push. Hey, how about we pump and dump ourselves? This person was really not impressed with. Anyway, so I'm just saying, there were a lot of people hating on Tage, and I think what they missed out on is and it's easy to say in hindsight, right? But it's like he was playing with good line mates for the first time, in his career. So I think a lot of people who were saying like, oh, just one good year, like it was a completely different situation for him. And also it's like Granato seems to be a good coach for offense. But obviously, again, this is easy for me to say now. So I just want people to like realize that like PJ is definitely not alone in thinking that Tage Thompson was overrated.
For sure. He also had a Kadri who I guess we can leave this up to Elon for, actually, there's a couple of these for PJ's hate list that are up in the air that we'll leave to Elon to be the ultimate judge. Kadri, I said push, and then, but then let me finish it out. Then I'll toss it over to you. Matty Tkachuk, that's a clear loss for his hate list. He's 11th overall in kick-up-full points right now. And Evander Kane, another one that kind of up in the air because like when he was healthy, it was a clear loss. But I guess now he's injured. So I called it a loss just because, while he was playing, he was so good. But Elon, what say you about this?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't just say that Evander Kane, like he knew that he was going to have his wrist cut like that. So, no, I mean, yeah, that's a shame. Like, I don't really know what to say here. Like, Matthew Tkachuk also like doing a lot.
What
better.
about Kadri?
Yeah, Kadri's even. I don't know. He started really great and then he really slowed down. And at this point, I think it's like, I wouldn't mind having him, but I'm not so excited about him. So I guess I agree. Like in the end, that's probably a win, I guess, saying that you don't want to draft him too high. But yeah, it's hard to get over Matthew Tkachuk and Tage Thompson there for sure. And Evander Kane, though he at least got injured.
PJ, the floor is yours.
I only have one thing in my defense. You guys had picked everyone that I had as my hate list, and then I wasn't able to use any of them and had to re-pick players like twice. I had Huberdeau, I had all these other guys, and you're like, nope, already taken, nope, already taken, pick somebody else. And again, I tried going somebody higher in the ranking, mid and later. And so for like Kadri, he was being drafted at like 60th overall, and I was like, I don't think he'll be 60th overall. I think that's too high. Right now he's currently 79th, so he's a bit lower than that. Push, I'd say it's pretty close, whatever. Tkachuk was because I had said I wanted Huberdeau or Lindholm, and then Mason had both of them, so I was like, well, I'll go the other guy on that trade that I don't know who I will go. And I will take the full loss on Kane, because as an Oilers fan, I am a fan of his. I just saw him going in like the third round in lots of them, and at that point, it wasn't even established whether it was going to be him or Hyman on the top power play. There was just a few question marks, and that was my like kind of honorable mention, really actually quite low on my hate list, but all the other guys I had tried picking originally were taken by you geniuses who are really good at your hate list. So I'll take it. I'm happy with being a lover, not a hater. So I'll take that title and take the big L for the hate list.
Hey, as I said, these picks aren't, or these wins and losses are not official. This, much like a stream scheme on a Friday, this is simply what the picks are trending towards. But I am clearly in the lead, trending towards 6 for 8. PJ is technically in second, trending 4 for 8, and Mason right behind, trending at 3.5 for 8. But Elon, what say you?
I was just looking at like just some draft results to see who would have been like the most like prophetic hate list pick. And like, imagine someone had said Cale Makar. You would have been like, "Are you an idiot?" Cale Makar's like at the end of last year, he had the biggest hype of all time, and I don't think this will last. But he's currently less than point per game, which I think is actually a bit surprising. And he was starting much better than that, and then it's maybe these Avalanche injuries have started to catch up to him. But yeah, I was surprised to see Makar only 26 points in 28 games. So you could have done a lot better with defense so far overall. So, but I don't think anyone was predicting that he was going to have a down year, and I still don't think he will.
I will start out here on our buy list. And so these are players that we are all targeting in trades and players that we are buying low on. My top player is Trevor Zegras, someone who I actually picked on my hate list, which was correct so far, but I do think he's going to be so great going forward. And the real reason that I want Zegras, Elon actually alluded to it earlier, is that sweet off night schedule. Out of the games left from like December 19th till the end of the Cup championship week, the Anaheim Ducks play 28 off days out of like 48 games. It's absolutely insane. And so even if you don't think that Zegras like isn't going to be that great, even if you think he's going to just kind of maintain what he's done at this point of the season throughout the rest of the season. Just with that off day schedule, just how little you're going to have to actually put him in on those busy days, I think is all the reason to grab him. Up next, kind of the same reason, but also a little bit more, Clayton Keller. The Coyotes have like, I think 20 light days, plus they have a ton of home games. And I think they're going to be performing a little bit better on home ice, not having to spend every single game on the road like they have been throughout the season so far. So I think you might see a little resurgence from the Coyotes, and he's pretty much the only guy I would really target from the Coyotes is Clayton Keller. And my third guy that I'm buying low on is Matt Barzal, who's been all right, but I really think he's going to explode in the second half of the season. Hopefully he can just keep up the shots as well. Mason, let's kick it to you. Let's hear your thoughts on those guys and hear your buy low list as well.
Yeah, I like each of those picks, I think. I hadn't really been thinking about the that off-night schedule too much, so that's really good. And this is the time that Keeping Karlsson has been talking about buying on those Coyote players who are going to have a great schedule moving forward. So for my three picks, my first is Ryan Hartman. I think he's an absolute lock for the top line when he comes back. The big question at the start of the year was like, does Eriksson Ek take that spot? Does Rossi take that spot? And that's why, people weren't thinking he would keep it up. But since he's been out, like nobody's done anything at all. And even before the season, the coach was saying like, this is Hartman's line. And I just think he'll come back to that spot, even if he isn't great. That's still as good as anyone else has been doing. I think 65 points like he got last year is a pretty solid bet there. And you can buy low because of the injury, because of how he was doing before the injury. And like Nate was saying on short shifts, maybe he's worked back in through the middle six. And I would be trying to trade for him to get that top line upside. Some of you might remember that last Christmas, I gave you my Hartman recommendation as a buy high. And so this year, to save you from tears, go get him for something unspecial. Well, second up, I have Makar. I think Colorado as a whole is kind of in the buy low range, but Makar particularly, he's getting like a minute and a half more ice time that he did last year, but he's still shooting well below his career average. McKinnon's shooting low. Landeskog, Nichushkin, everybody's been out. And I expect him to be basically what he was last year. He's currently ranked 60th and he only has top 5 points in his last 10. So I think that's a clear buy window. And if you could trade like a Fox or a Karlsson who are currently decently ahead, I'd do that for sure. Maybe even add something to get him. I think if you can buy low on him, you'll be singing Mele Kaliki Makar the rest of the season. And finally, I've got Philip Forsberg. I think Nashville has started to put things together a little bit more. And, we didn't think he or Yossi or Duchesne would keep up what they did last year, but they're all basically shooting like 50% of what they did last year. And all of those are below their career averages. So I think those will bounce back a bit. And he's a really streaky player, even though he's been cold. I could see him just putting up like 6 goals over 8 games or something, or scoring a couple hat tricks and bouncing right back up to being kind of what we thought at the start of the year, which is more of like a 3rd or 4th round value than where he is now.
PJ, let's kick it over to you. Give your thoughts on Mason's list, and then let's hear your buy lows.
Yeah, if you remember correctly, like Mason and I both were talking about Hartman before and how we liked him, and he hasn't started out strong. And so like I was saying to you guys beforehand, he is one that's like a little bit hard to say, like how low is he, because he was low, but then he's also been injured for so long. So like where he would be ranking is pretty, skewed a little bit. But I don't hate the idea. Like Mason said, no one's really stolen that. I could see him bumping Sam Steele from the top line pretty easily once he gets back into it. So that's pretty good. And I agree with Makar. That's the one that I think, I think it's going to be a little hard to buy low on him still, just because people do know who he is. But like you said, Mason, if you can put somebody who's also a good defenseman putting up points or whatever and try and trade him for that and get the upgrade. Once Colorado starts getting healthy again, I think we're going to see quite a different team than what we've seen so far. They've been a lot lower than I think anyone projected them to be. So, yeah, I like a couple of those picks for sure. And then moving on to, mine, I've got a few in there that we've maybe mentioned already. So I'll start with one of those guys being Jonathan Huberdeau. I think this is a pretty clear buy low at this point. Might be in that same realm of the Makar where people might just be holding on to him and hoping that he turns it around because they probably drafted him in the second round or late first round or something, and he just hasn't lived up to that. But if you could offer something and be able to get a Huberdeau, that team started to get a little better. They started really bad in the season, and they're not like a top team like they were putting up as many points as they were last year, but he's going to be clicking with somebody at some point. That guy's a guy that drives play a lot of the time, so I'm not going to just rely on it. He's a guy who's always going to be assisting on stuff, so if he can get somebody that's able to put some of those in the net, he's going to be starting to get some more points. Another guy that I want to buy low on is Seider, another guy that we've mentioned already. And this will be an interesting one because, we just did have that big hit on Hronek last game or whatever, but, he's already been back at practice with the regular jersey, so Hronek's not necessarily going to miss any time. But Seider's just one that I think it's just a matter of time before he steals that top power play back. We talked a bit about him in that last episode on what we think of him, and I just think he's a guy that I'm going to be targeting as he's going to, turn it up for the rest of the season. And another defenseman that's going to do similar, I hope, is Victor Hedman. Sergachev was kind of taking some of that top power play. He's a little injured right now, but Hedman had taken that top power play back already. But he's just not producing to where people have drafted him. And some managers are starting to get fed up. I know I've actually seen some trade offers of Hedman for some of my players in other leagues that I've been trying to push through, and then they reneged on it. So unfortunately, but I'm still working to get that Hedman pick in one of the other ones. So those are my 3 buy lows.
Yeah, I have to admit, Lewis offered me Victor Hedman for Chris Letang back when Hedman was, super cold and off the top power play. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I ended up balking, and I probably should have taken it because Hedman's already like, you might be, I've missed the window now to, buy low on Victor Hedman. He has 4 assists in his last 2 games. He's back on the top power play. Sergachev is injured though. So I guess that would be the sales pitch. Like, as soon as Sergachev comes back, Hedman back off the top power play. I don't know. It's tricky. Like, at least Letang is like guaranteed top power play when he's in the lineup. Hopefully he'll stay healthy the rest of the year. So Hedman is an interesting pick, and like you could end up getting a big win there because you're definitely not going to get him for cheap though. So when you're saying buy low, like it's not as if you're going to be able to give away, I don't know, Ryan Hartman type guys to get it. You're going to have to give someone pretty good, and then you'll be nervous all season hoping he holds that top power play. I did want to also comment on this like Hartman thing. I think I agree with what you guys are saying, but I feel like it's more of like, hopefully you find him out of free agency. Because you say like he's a lock, like Mason mentioned, he's like a lock to get back on the top line. Like I'll just throw it out there that, yeah, I concur that, Steele hasn't like done much in terms of like offense for himself, but Minnesota has won 3 games in a row, and they were having a rough season. And before that they had 2 losses, and before that they had a few wins in a row. So they've kind of started to turn the season around. And so I just wonder if it's starting to work with what they're doing, then maybe they're not going to want to mess with it. So I'm not saying that I disagree that Hartman gets another shot on the top line. I don't know if I'd call it a lock, I guess. Those are some of my thoughts. But Dave, I guess you want me to throw
let's hear that love, or I guess it's kind of the love list. Your buy low list, yeah. Your buy low list, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm used to playing in like tier 1 of the couple where like you can't even make trades. Like, I'm trying to like imagine, yeah, just a big brag here, but like it's hard to imagine buying low on anyone just because, like, so I'll throw out some names that I wonder if people might be impatient with them, but I know that I wouldn't be able to do this in a couple of these. But like, Patrice Bergeron is cold, only 1 point in his last 5 games. He's now on a season pace that's like well below anything he's done in like a really long time. He's pacing from like 62 points. Like, I'm personally not worried. Like, I guess he's a bit of a risk. Also, he could get injured. So, that sales pitch is like, man, he's cold and he hasn't had his yearly injury yet. But like, I'd love to get Patrice Bergeron on the cheap if I could. I don't know exactly what you'd have to give away to get him at this point. Like, I guess it depends how impatient his manager is. Similar for Martin Necas, I have as my next pick. He was doing so well, and then all of a sudden now he's like pointless in 4. And I think the astute of us realize that Sebastian Aho has been injured, and obviously they were like making sweet music together, and perhaps just having Aho away, was whatever leading to this cold streak. Also, just maybe some bad luck. So I would imagine Necas maybe isn't like the point per game guy he was earlier in the year, but I think he's also not like someone that is worth dropping. And maybe there's some people who are starting to get super nervous and think that like, oh, I guess we're back now to Necas, who I grabbed out of free agency in the first week, and then you can be like, oh well, don't just drop him. Like, I'll throw you some some peanuts here and I'll take Necas off your hands. I don't know if you could pull that off, but he's someone who I'd expect to bounce back. And then I don't know, like then I was like I was asking you guys before in our group chat, like, can I say Jesper Bratt? He's like pointless in 3 games. I really like him. Like, I don't know if that's actually like a buy low. Like, who's going to do that? So that's probably not even a good pick. I don't know. I'll throw Drew Doughty. I think he's good. He's like on a bit of a cold streak right now. But again, like, I don't know how low you can get that guy. But, Doughty is like, the LA team has been struggling a little bit recently, and they have trouble scoring goals. And I think a lot of it is also like just they've been getting such weak goaltending. I think it's like underrated how much like really crappy goaltending could also hurt your team's offense, because you just like maybe are more afraid to like take a risky pass because if it gets intercepted, like it's almost for sure a goal against because your goalie is so bad. So yeah, Doughty right now only pacing for 46 points, but I could see LA turning it around, and he could be a little bit better if you can get him for the cheap. So well, those are my picks. I don't know. I don't love it. To be honest, Dave knows I'm not a trader. I'm like, I play free agency. That's how I play fantasy hockey. So I like to just wait for one of these guys to get dropped, and then I pounce.
Elon is the ad drop ace, as we like to describe him. But no, I'll critique your picks here, and then we can go around horn real quick on the buys in general. But I like Doughty the best out of the 3 of them. I think I don't know about you, but I get a lot of Jersey Doughty questions and things like that, and I always been advising people, stick it out with Doughty. He'll be all right. And you said 46 point pace, nothing to scoff at. But I guess, if PJ, Mason, or Elon have any other closing thoughts on our buy list here.
Yeah, I think the Doughty pick is one of the ones that I overlooked, to be perfectly honest there, Elon. I like that one. And maybe it's because I have him on my team, so I haven't been like trying to sell him. I've just been kind of holding steady with him because he was, pre-ranked in like probably around 80th or something like that, or Cupful. I'm not sure what it was, but Yahoo said his preseason rank was 75, which I don't know that I trust Yahoo's preseason ranks for anything, but he's currently sitting at 151. So that's a guy that could definitely move up and be somebody I'd target. So I like that pick. That's a good one.
I'm just in general trying to move away from buying low on players just because of where I had them ranked at the start of the season. Like, I think, buying low on someone because of low shooting percentage or whatever, like absolutely you can do that. But otherwise, like I have been trying to buy high. I traded Letang for Carlson at the peak of his hot streak this year, and I've been very happy with that trade. I've made a few others like that. And last year, one of the things that sunk me was trying to do too much buying low and selling high on guys that I drafted late, like Meyer. But Elon, I think with your Bratt pick, like, I don't know, a guy doesn't have to be struggling to be a buy low. Like, if you think Bratt will be better than he's been doing, then it is a buy low, even though he's had a pretty decent season so far. So I don't mind that as a pick.
Yeah, I guess it depends the mindset of the person you're trading with. Like, overall of the season, his numbers are still really good, but he's like cold like last week. So I don't know if the person's like, well, it's done.
And unlike the stream scheme, we don't have a rostered percentage on any of these picks. Maybe Elon's are a little bit more of a shallow kind of buy low, perhaps. But yeah, no rules here. They're all good picks. Go ahead, Peach.
All right.
I was just going to disagree with Elon and Mason on that one, that I don't think Bratt is a buy low candidate. Like, I had him, and I know, Mason, you just said don't worry too much about your pre-ranking, but I had him ranked lower than where he has been now, even with a week of, slowness. He's still a guy that I think is going to turn around. Mason, that's who I picked with my first round pick that I traded you Batherson for in Babupful, and I've been pretty happy to get Bratt in the first round of Babupful so far. That's been pretty good pick for me. So I don't know, maybe somebody would though, Elon. You never know. It's always worth reaching out to those managers, and if that's a guy that you see is slumping, I don't think that's ever bad advice to like see somebody's gone a week or two without doing it, and just reach out and see like, oh, are you fed up with this guy yet? And you know what? If you can win that trade, that would be huge. So I don't hate the advice at all. I'm not saying that, but I just don't know that I see Bratt as a buy low candidate myself. But if the manager does, then great.
I regretted it as I said it. Like, and I don't even agree with you that there's like doesn't hurt. Like, it could hurt. Like, you insult the person's intelligence, and then they like don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, you don't want to go to them. Oh, don't you think Brad is done? And then they're just like, get out of here.
Well, I think you would have to offer them something worthwhile. You're not going to be like, oh, I'll just take that schmuck off your hands for nothing. Yes.
Well, Dave just said,
could offend.
Yeah, Dave said earlier that he would like love to trade for Matt Barzal. If I had Barzal, I'd send him to Dave for Jesper Bratt. That would be a deal I would make.
I wouldn't send you Bratt, but I'd send you a draft pick.
Okay, fair. All right, we're doing some buy high, sell highs now.
Elon, let's hear the players that you're selling high on.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is like not really my forte and the way I like to play. Like, I'm almost feel like selling high. I'll just do a little bit of a preach here, but like, I feel like selling high is like an overrated thing to do. Like, as opposed to maybe you just like hang on to the guy and enjoy the production. And then when he slows down, you had a good time. And yeah, maybe you could be like doing all these amazing deals and like just like selling the person at their peak and then like getting the next guy who's about to go up. But I don't know. I feel like if I've gotten a hot streak, I'm just probably going to enjoy it. And then if it slows down, then whatever, I'll drop him or do whatever. Find some guy in free agency who's going to go on his next hot streak. But I was thinking of it in terms of like injuries a little bit. Like, I think Matt Murray right now is someone that I would probably try to sell, just because like, I'm not saying that I don't believe in what he's doing in Toronto. Like, maybe he has like found his game, and Toronto's like a much better place to play than Ottawa in terms of the defense, and maybe that's helping his confidence. I think with him, it was a bit of a confidence thing. But I just like I would be so afraid that he'll get injured. Like, I feel like it's just like any game, it could happen and I wouldn't be shocked. So if you could start getting like a legit good number one goalie that you don't have to be as worried about for injuries, I think that would probably be something that I would consider. And then I'm just going to go with the same rationale for like an Evgeny Malkin, who, like Crosby, is just having another like awesome season. He's up to 31 points in 30 games. He's peak Malkin at this point, right? Is exactly what you'd want from him. And I feel like he just has his yearly injury. Like, just look at his games played over the past few seasons. Like, you have one season at 78, and then aside from that, there's like nothing above 70 like ever since 2011, 2012. So like, maybe this is the year that Malkin can hold it together and hold his body together all year. But if I could trade him for, someone who is putting up similar numbers, then I would probably just do that. Then I could rest easy a little bit. So those are two of my picks. Those are like injury related. And then another one that's like a little lower level is like an Adrian Kempe, just because like he's slowly started to be good again. And I mean, just like really recently, like he's had like 4 goals in his last 4 games. And I'm still like super nervous. Like, maybe you could try to convince someone like, oh, he's back to being, the Kempe from last year, who was that big, 35 goal scorer, but he's like still on the third line. And I really think this is just a bit of a blip. So if you can sell him now after having drafted him so high and regretting it, it would be a nice time to do it. Like, I think the temptation is you drafted him, he was bad for you, and then you didn't drop him for whatever reason. Now you're like, oh, it's finally working out for me. But I think maybe the better mindset is like, now's my chance to finally get out from under this bad pick that I made. So those are my 3. What do you think?
Yeah, I like all of those. I think Matt Murray is always a sell for me. Anytime he does anything good, just get him off your team, capitalize on that if you can, especially if there's some Toronto fans in your league that are like, he keeps getting shutouts. And then Malkin, like, I agree. I think that selling him in anticipation of an injury is pretty good. But if he's on your team, that means you also drafted him with the same injury risk, and he's been performing pretty much exactly how you expected him to. So, it might be hard to bring yourself to sell him. But I do think he'll probably get hurt at some point, and it would be better not to have him on your team. And then Adrian Kempe, I definitely think he's a sell high. He's on my team, and I really wish I could sell high. Don't think anyone will bite, and it hurts even more because I traded Jari for him right before Jari went on like an 11-game winning streak, even though he was losing starts to Smith when I moved him. And then Kempe got bumped, and it's been rough from there. But yeah, if you can sell Kempe, I'd be happy to do that too. I have way too many Kings on my team. Elon probably does too.
I've been dropping them. I've been dropping them so fast. I dropped already Velarde. I dropped Iafallo today. Not even Dave would be mad. It wasn't even a streamer drop. I just dropped him for Dylan Strome, just figuring like I need to start actually adding some good players to my team and not just focusing on streaming. I've got Kaliev left, line 1 Kaliev, but I mean he's also still not doing anything. So these Kings, man, ridiculous. Oh, but Phoenix Copley's good. He's someone I would add.
I have Velarde the other day. Power play 1, but I don't know. I should probably drop him. And then Kempe, I can't bring myself to drop him because I gave Jari for him. Okay, so my sell highs. My first one is a little category of first line centers on bad teams. You've got Horvat, Couture, and Suzuki, who are all doing really well. Like Horvat and Couture are like top 40 in couple scoring. And it's all coming from goals that they're scoring. And they're not like shooting way more than other years or anything. They're just scoring a ton of goals. The goals are going in the net. I think, it'd be a good idea to sell all of these guys if you can get anything close to the ranking that they have currently. I do think, they're not going to fall off completely, but they're all shooting like twice their shooting percentage, their usual shooting percentage. And I just think it'll fall back down much closer to that. So I'm not a complete homer, Dave. Get rid of Horvat. Bad vibes in Vancouver, despite how well he's been doing. Next up, I have Taylor Hall. He's been kind of on fire lately, and that combined with like a hot start when DeBrusque and Marchand were out, I think his overall ranking is still pretty good and lots of points recently. But him being on the third line is just so gross. And second power play, like there's nobody for him to get points with. And I think if you can get out from under that, that would be great. And then finally, I have Nugent Hopkins, who has been doing really well this year, but it's all been coming in surprising ways. He's also shooting way too high. He has absolutely nobody to play with on his line. Like currently, I think he's with Janmark and Yamamoto. He gets Puljujarvi there sometimes or Holloway, but none of these guys are anyone that I expect him to get points with. And despite that, he has 11 even strength goals, which is just way too high. And then on the power play, he has like the same number of points on the power play as he got last year in twice as many games, and just has never had this pace before, despite playing with the same players. So I can't see that keeping up either. I think you'd be able to get someone pretty decent for all of these players, and I definitely want to move them off my team.
All right. To just kind of touch on a few of Mason's, I kind of agree. Some of those guys you mentioned, like Couture, Horvat, are ones that I was looking at as well as kind of like some sell high sort of candidates. They're just playing unreal and hard to see them keeping it up the whole season. And the one with Horvat, like you mentioned, Mason, the kind of that bad vibes, not necessarily going to be staying with the team. And there'll be, some other stuff going on there. So who knows, but like he's playing unreal. And like Elon said before, it's hard. These are guys that are like just awesome to have on your team right now. And it's kind of just looking ahead and thinking, are they going to kind of have that fall off or not? And I don't think any of those players are going to be like unrosterable at all. Like they're all going to be good players throughout, but they're probably going to drop. You might be able to get somebody who's slightly lower right now that might be able to pull that up. Nugent Hopkins is an interesting one, and I won't go on too long. I know I'm the Oilers fan here, but just looking at a bunch of stuff and a lot of the reports of it, they've actually been commending his play more so away from like playing with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl this year, being able to actually drive a line a lot more than he ever has before, and he's been playing a lot more. I'm not saying that I think he's going to keep it up as much, but he's kind of found that role on the power play even more. And he's also been able to like still put in those even strength points. Like you said, his shooting percentage is up, but he's also getting into better shooting areas. And that's what, I've been noticing from watching the games. But like you said, Mason, I think he's really high right now. Like Edmonton has 4 players in the top 30 in scoring right now with Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, McDavid. I don't think they're going to finish the season with 4 players in the top 30. So I don't hate the pick. I'm not as low on him maybe as you are for that. But Mason, you had your hand up if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. Like, of the two, him and Hyman, give me Hyman all day. Despite them having similar stats, like, he's actually the one playing with those players at even strength and on the power play. And if you say like he's been really good without McDavid and Draisaitl, and that's what Oilers media is saying, like, that's all the more reason for me to trade him, because I only think he's going to be able to keep up anything close to this if he's playing with one of those guys at even strength.
You do also have to just remember that Edmonton does have a few injuries right now with like Kane, even some guys lower in the lineup. So there are some other players that are supposed to be coming back, and Nugent Hopkins will probably be playing with somebody at even strength like a Hyman or maybe a Draisaitl or somebody else going forward. He's actually probably playing with the lesser of players right now than he will be for the rest of the season. That's all I want to say. I wasn't saying it was a bad pick. I was just giving some rebuttal on that as the Oilers homer here, but trying to keep pretty honest with it and what I'm seeing. But I'll give you my 3 right now. And I did switch one up, so I'll screw you guys up from what I had mentioned earlier, but it was just somebody who I'd been, with a little bit later today. And the guy I have on my team that I'm looking to move in another league and realized I should be chatting about him. But I'll start with the opposite to my Sider pick and going with Hronek. I think he's over doing like what he's excelling too much right now. I do, as I said, the reason why I have Sider as a buy low is I think Sider's going to eventually take that power play back over. In my mind, it's a matter of time. And that'll like take away some of those points and stuff. I don't think he's bad. Don't get me wrong. He did say he was practicing in a regular jersey, so he's not going to miss much time after that hit. That was my one concern, if you'd even be able to. But at this point, I would probably be trying to move him for maybe a likewise D or something that I think is going to maybe hold it up versus somebody who might lose that top power play. And you know what? Even if he doesn't, sure, yeah, he's going to keep going. But I just think, when Detroit starts getting some of these players back, and if Sider bumps it, I don't know that Hronek's going to be as relevant for me. The next one is Jeff Skinner. The guy's playing unreal right now. Buffalo's scoring goals. I know I'm the one who said Tage Thompson was on my hate list, whatever, but Skinner's shooting percentage is the highest it's ever been in his career this year. He's only 1 goal away on the power play from matching his total in goals and assists on the power play from last year in a whole season. So he's like, he's up a minute on the power play, but he's down a minute of like time on ice from last year. It's kind of a weird one, and I just don't see him keeping at this high of a pace. I don't think he's going to drop off the mark, but I don't think he's going to stay as elite as he has looked so far. So if I was a Skinner owner, I'd be looking to try and move him at this point. And the last one that I kind of switched up, Dominic Kubalik. And this one's one where he kind of has been playing really, really well for a few weeks, and over the past week he's just started slumping a bit. So it might be a little harder to sell high on at this point if people are just looking at his last week. But he is a guy that was doing really well, but he's kind of moving around the lineup, and I'm just worried about with like Jacob Verana coming back and a few of these other guys that are still a few weeks away, but Verana joined the team today. And I'm just curious what Detroit's offensive lines are going to shake out to be. And I think I see him dropping even more than he already has started to. So I'm not saying you're going to be able to like go and get a top 50 player for him, but if you could get a top 100 player for him, I feel like he's going to slowly be slipping out of that contention of a top 100 player at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Kubalik dropped in some leagues soon. So I think if you're trying to sell him, I think probably just wait and hope he has like a big game at some point and then try, because right now I just can't imagine anyone being interested in a guy with no points and only 3 shots in his last 4 games, especially with the news that Verana's coming back. But yeah, I like the other picks.
Well, this one, like I'm saying, he was doing really well up until this past week, and this past week has been rough, but he also did get bumped back up to the second line at the end of last game. He was playing on the third line. So like, I'm with you, Elon, 100%. If he puts up a goal or something, that's your time. Try and sell him. If not, he's probably going to be somebody who just ends up getting dropped. So maybe you can trade him for somebody that's a little bit more keeper territory than just a waiver wire pickup.
And not that I would necessarily recommend trying to pull the wool over a fellow fantasy manager's eyes, but let's just maybe say for someone like a Kubalik, you look and see who's maybe not paying as much attention to their rosters, who's not making a ton of adds and drops, and maybe they just look at that, overall season total rank whenever they see that trade project or that trade offer. So never hurts, stuff like that. But
then you got to change leagues. You don't want to be playing with these types of players. That's not fun.
It's like a hometown league. Like you don't. All of your friends, like obviously, some of my friends are great at fantasy. Shout out Tier 1 Harrison, who I'm rooting for to bring the title back to Pittsburgh, PA. Shout out to Harrison. But, other times there's players who in our hometown league that just hasn't set his roster in the last month and a half. So you're going to have that, in hometown leagues and stuff like that. So, not all leagues can be tier 1 of the couple, Elon. You have to realize that sometimes.
Yeah. Then you got to think do you want to be the one then ripping off the person who doesn't know what they're doing? That's going to hurt your rep.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah. We're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, but hey, if it's going to be someone,
maybe you could throw them in like a package deal. It could be like a 2 for 2, and that could be like a sweetener. And then you're not making a bad trade to just get ahead, but it could be something that's maybe somebody sees some value in or whatever. It doesn't always have to be a 1-for-1 trade in these ones. These are just guys that, we're seeing starting to, lose faith in our lineup, and maybe somebody else is willing to take that risk. And that's kind of where I put him in that one.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. Also, I really hope you're wrong about Jeff Skinner. I just traded for him. So I like that every once in a while he has a 5-point game. That's really nice.
Hey, nothing wrong with the Mason approach of buy high. That's a strategy as well. That's just not what we're talking about here today.
Yeah. All right. So Dave, I'm curious to hear yours.
Elon, I actually really like your Malkin pick. I was touting him before the season, even drafted him in my couple team. But yeah, kind of like you said, will be someone who, I can't sell on Malkin, so I'll probably just hold him until he inevitably gets injured. I was really high on him. He was in the best shape of his life. I haven't been as impressed as I thought I was going to be. I thought it would be one of those years where he really just comes out swinging, but sometimes it actually takes a Crosby injury for him to do that, which I also hope doesn't happen, but we'll see who gets injured this month on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Mason, I like your list, but I love Suzuki. I think someone else was saying, I brought him up on short shifts on Tuesday about how I think Suzuki and Caulfield are some of my biggest regrets in our tier 4 couple draft. And then someone on the short shifts Discord server said oh no, sell because that shooting percentage and everything like that. And I'm like, I'll take them. Sometimes I just like guys, sometimes you just gotta throw stats out the window and just do the old gut feel. And I like Suzuki and Caulfield, but go ahead, Mace.
Yeah, I do like them too. At the start of this season, in all the mocks that we were doing, I was picking the combination of Suzuki and Caulfield in the 8th and 9th round, over and over and over. And then in our actual draft, I picked right at the start of the 8th round and felt like it was too soon. And they were both gone by the time it came back to me. I think that they'll keep up close to what they're doing, but some people might be higher on them than you are, and that their stats have shown so far this season. So I think, and him, he's probably really just to a lesser extent than Horvat or Couture is, but I thought I would lump him in there a little bit, just having the same indicators of a high shooting percentage.
Yeah, and so I'll go through my sell high list very quickly as well. First up, I've got the entire team of the St. Louis Blues. I don't like them, and kind of similar to my buy low picks, I'm selling high on any of the Blues that are performing even somewhat decently because of their terrible schedule in the second half from, as I mentioned, starting on Monday until the last week through the last week of the Couple Championship week, which I think ends on April 2nd. St. Louis plays 46 games, 11 light days out of 46, which is gross. And I don't want it. And so especially kind of like those mid-tier players, your Rob Thomases, your Kyrou, Shen, Ryan O'Reilly, maybe, like all those guys I'm selling. Like the only one who I really kind of wouldn't sell would be Tank probably. But either way, 11 light days out of 46 games, that's gross. Like the average light day is like 17, 18. So that's like 2 full weeks of light days that they're missing out from like the average team. So that's why I'm selling all the Blues. My next sell high, Kevin Fiala. I've been trying to trade him like crazy in the couple. No success, unfortunately, because I'm not going to sell him for nothing. You know, I think he's like top 40 in couple points right now, but I also don't love the Kings schedule. They only have 14 light days out of in only 43 games. So they actually play the least amount of games of anyone coming up here in the second half, if you count from Monday until the end of the season. And then my last one is Joe Pavelski. Nothing really wrong with Joe Pavelski necessarily. I can just feel it. Like there's going to be at some point, I feel that I can't tell you why. I don't even think it might be because of an injury. Maybe just a little cold streak. They're going to be like, you know what? Maybe let's try out someone young also with Hinton Robertson here. And then I feel like he might never regain it again. And so that's why I kind of want to trade Pavelski while he's still getting that primo deploymento, because I don't have a reason. I just got a gut feeling that it's going to be bad news bears for Pavelski if he gets knocked off that line for injury or just for a cold stretch or whatever the case is. So that's all our buy high and sell lows. Let's go through each person. You can give a recap on your buy highs and sell lows. Any honorable mentions you want to feel like you want to hit really quick, and just any other quick hitters that you want to give on any of mine or any other players that we talked about. So I guess I'll start it off real quick here, just because I want to mention the Detroit Red Wings is honorable mentions. I just love them in the second half. I'm really high on, I don't know how the lines are going to shake out, but just in general, I want in on Rana. You can get him for pretty, well, I don't know if someone's holding him this whole time, they might not trade him for that cheap, but I like Rana. I like Bertuzzi. I think you can get him for super cheap. And yeah, I just think the Red Wings might come back, and if all those guys get healthy with like Fabry and stuff like that, their top 3 lines actually aren't too bad. When you throw in like Raymond, Kubalik, Ron, it's actually looking like pretty good. If all those guys come back and all those get healthy, I would only be scared if they did like a split power play type thing. But yeah, that's all I got. In my buy list was Zegras, Keller, and Barzell. And I am selling the Blues, Fiala, and Pavelski. Let's go to you, Mason.
My buy low list was Hartman, Makar, and Forsberg. And for sell highs, I had Horvat, Couture, Hall, and Nugent Hopkins. And I guess the only thing that I'd really add is that Dave's sell list is crap, and don't get rid of Fiala. Like Dave said before, we always have the opposite opinion. So I'm just going to lean into that here. Don't sell Fiala or Pavelski. They are locked into great deployment and should keep it going all year. And I will also point out that Dave was trying to sell Fiala for Huberdeau, and that trade was declined. He offered Robert Thomas as well, and put up a poll on Twitter, and almost everyone wanted the Fiala side. So I agree. I think Fiala is going to be probably as good or better than Huberdeau the rest of the way.
I know. I wish I could send that guy's like not on Discord, like he doesn't, but whatever. But PJ, let's hear your list, your honorable mentions, anything else, and then we'll close it out with Elon.
Yeah, I think the one that we kind of chatted about beforehand, and I know Elon had mentioned it too, and I kind of pulled him off my buy low list just because it was mentioned that he's only rostered in 47% of leagues right now, Yahoo leagues. So Raymond on Detroit Dave, you just had mentioned him as well, and that's a guy that I think is going to turn it around. And like you said, Detroit, I'm pretty high on, and I had a lot of Detroit players listed, even some on my sell high, but I like I mentioned, I don't think Hronek's going to be terrible going forward. I just think I have a feeling Seider's going to reclaim that top power play. He's going to do better. Raymond's going to do better. Once some of these injuries start coming back, I think that whole team's just going to be a little bit stronger. And so I'm pretty excited about him. So that was kind of one of my honorable mentions. I also had another honorable mention for my sell high in Jamie Benn, who's a guy I have who I've been trying to trade. But he just keeps doing it. He just keeps putting up points for me, and I picked him up as a streamer 1 week weeks ago, and a guy I cannot let go because he's just kept performing. So it doesn't make sense to me because he doesn't have like a ton of minutes. He's playing mainly, third line a lot of the time, whatever, but he just seems to be able to put up points. So he's a guy that I'm trying to sell, but I'm failing at, so I don't know if anyone else is going to be able to sneak that one in, but he might just be a guy I just keep riding and enjoy it while I have him performing, and he might go back to the free agency when I'm done. And then my lists are buy low was Victor Hedman, Seider, and Huberdeau, and my sell high were Hronek, Jeff Skinner, and Dominic Kubalik.
All right. Yeah, I think Jamie Benn probably, just hold and then eventually drop. I don't think you're going to get much for him, but yeah, he's been kind of cold lately, but he just scored in his last game, but on only one shot, a power play goal. It's just on that top power play. He has a good chance. Another guy on that top power play, Joe Pavelski. I definitely agree with Mason that I'm not so interested in selling him. But hey, Dave's got his hunch. We'll find. I remember one year you had your hunches of like random guys that were going to get injured, and I don't know if those ended up coming true, but we'll see about this one. I guess, to summarize my list here, I had Bergeron, Natchez, Doughty as the buy lows, and then I had Kempe, Murray, and Malkin as my sell highs. But at the end of the day, I just want to encourage people to, play your waiver wire. Sometimes you can buy low, aka get someone for free out of free agency, and then that person ends up being, a hold. You don't have to negotiate with anyone. You don't have to bamboozle everyone. So I would definitely recommend before, stressing out too much about trades, see if there's just any potential gems out there in free agency for you. And you could tweet at Keeping Karlsson or at the Stream Scheme. It's not, what is it? Stream Scheme NHL? Tweet at Dave, you'll find him.
Yeah,
NHL Stream Scheme. And, ask us what we think about these ads. And we'll let you know if we think it's worth it. But I always like playing that game because it's a little easier. But some people love trades. I mean, some people just go nuts and that's like the most fun for them. So obviously have at it. But it's always tricky. If you're selling high, there's a chance that the person might just stay really good. So there's definitely some risk there.
Yeah. And so if you scroll to the very end of the podcast for a recap, here you go. Dave is buying high on Zegras, Keller, and Barzell. He's selling on the Blues, Fiala, and Pavelski. Mason is buying on Hartman, McCarr, and Philly Forsberg, and selling on Horvat, Couture, Hall, and Nugent Hopkins, and maybe Suzuki in there as well. I'm not sure if you walked that back. PJ is buying on Huberdeau, Seider, and Hedman, and selling on Hronek, Skinner, and Dominique Kubalik. Elon is buying on Bergeron, Natchez, and Doughty, and selling on Matt Murray, Evgeny Malkin, and Adrian Kempe. And thanks everyone. I guess we can go around and give like one final thought if you want there. If anyone wants to, you can just hand up or talk or whatever.
Great job, Dave. Really had some fun recording these last couple shows with you. And happy holidays to everyone. Though, of course, we're going to be back with another Keeping Karlsson episode coming. No shortage of shows in the Keeping Karlsson feed, as people are probably realizing. And after you're listening to this, you'll probably have another couple episodes ready for you for Brian and I's mega show on Sunday. So hope you're enjoying all the content. And good luck in your matchups next week. These shortened matchups, you got to be really shrewd to win it in only 5 days.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for having us. It's been great competing with you in our tier so far, even though neither of us is doing that well. Hopefully we can turn things around with some of these picks, and hopefully this helps some of you other teams out there as well.
Always a pleasure to join you on the stream scheme, Dave. Elon, really fun to have you join us this time too. This is great. Mason, always love your exact opposite takes of Dave's. It just makes me smile. So this has been another fun one, and looking forward to whatever the next one will be.
And with that, keep on keeping Karlsson. Bye.